Hello, everybody of YouTube land, those that are part of the Cringe Crew Gaming Discord, uh, possibly people on Spotify, um, and whatever uh, sound streaming platform you're hearing this, and people who follow Ted and I on Twitch. I am Traductus.
And I'm Ted.
And this is the Cringe Crew Gaming Movie Review Podcast, where we obviously review movies of a director's repertoire. Quite different from our James Bond podcast, which was, watching a franchise. This, we're, for more variety, we are doing a director. And in this case, the tables have turned where Ted, instead of being the newbie casual, Ted is the expert, and I am the newbie casual for Christopher Nolan's one of Ted's favorite directors. So, that being said, we are watching Christopher Nolan's 2008 superhero film. You might have heard it, heard about it, might not. It's kind of, a hip movie.
Super niche.
It's called Super Niche. More nicher than free jazz. It's The Dark Knight.
Dear fucking God.
Yeah. Probably Christopher Nolan's most famous fucking movie here. Obviously directed by Christopher Nolan. Released in New York City in July 14th, 2008. And for the rest of the United States, July 18th, 2008, and July 25th, 2008 in the United Kingdom. I had a budget of $185 million and made $1.006 billion in the box office.
That's a turnaround. That's a turnaround.
Yeah. So, anyway, So, development. Following the critical and financial success of Batman Begins, the film studio Warner Bros. Prioritized a sequel. Although Batman Begins ends with the same presented with a Joker playing card teasing the introduction of his arch enemy, the Joker, Christopher Nolan did not intend to make a sequel and was unsure Batman Begins would be successful enough to warrant one.
Interesting.
So,
Batman Begins was such a good project and such a visible, people know who Batman is already. Like, the idea that he didn't have the confidence in himself to make a sequel film is incredible to me, actually. Very strange.
Yeah.
But glad he did, because this was a banger.
Well, apparently he was still, according to this Wikipedia article, he was still unsure how to continue the Batman Begins narrative while keeping it consistent and relative, though he was interested in using the Joker in Begins the grounded realistic style that, Batman Begins was in. He didn't want to, have the Joker be like Cesar Romero in the Adam West series.
Sure.
Development of the movie began following the production of The Prestige.
Yeah, we were looking it up as we were watching, and they overlapped just a little bit, if I remember correctly.
Right.
The Prestige wasn't quite done, and this one was already in the works.
Now, this movie was Now, I know that you thought this movie was actually filmed in Pittsburgh. It wasn't.
Really?
It was filmed in Chicago, England, and Hong Kong.
Well, I knew the Hong Kong part because that was on location. But I really thought that this one was in Pittsburgh. So that I stand corrected.
No, so I think it's the third one that's in Pittsburgh.
Interesting.
I know the third one's in Pittsburgh, but that being said, shall go with casting. Obviously, Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne and Batman Michael Caine as Alfred Pennyworth,
He's just Alfred.
back again.
He's just Alfred.
Gary, yeah, Gary Oldman returns as James Gordon, and Morgan Freeman returns as Lucius Fox. Now, casting, there is a character that is different, and that is Maggie Gyllenhaal replaces Katie Holmes as Rachel Dawes. If I remember right, if we were while we were looking this up, why like Katie Holmes didn't come back? Wasn't she just didn't want to? Was like busy doing other shit?
She declined the role. She was busy with other projects, and when we looked up the project, it was something stupid you'd never heard of before. So definitely the wrong decision on her part. But for what it's worth, I think Maggie Gyllenhaal is the better cast. I think she does a much better performance acting, and Rachel Dawes gets a bigger role in this one. So I do think it was a good switch, even if it wasn't necessarily intentional.
Now, Ledger, he was actually cast, and he was criticized by some industry. I mean, the casting was criticized by some professionals and members of the public who considered him inappropriate for the role. Which,
they're all eating crow now. That's for goddamn sure.
Well, I could see why, because he was more of like a heartthrob type of actor before, you know.
Yeah, I will say that like he really sunk into this character though. Like you can look at the Joker as being an entirely separate entity from Heath Ledger, but it's the performance that Heath Ledger is going to be remembered for. Like, and it's not close. This is an incredible performance, and you're not necessarily like you can look at Christian Bale portraying Bruce Wayne and still recognize. Oh, he's an American Psycho. Oh, he like you can attribute them to other things, but like the Joker is its own indistinguishable character. You're not attributing it to anything. Like this is the perfect casting, the perfect performance. Heath Ledger kills it, but I'm not going to spoil too far ahead of myself.
Right. Ledger was the only person that was seriously considered for the role of the Joker. And essentially Ledger knew how legendary Jack Nicholson's portrayal was and was a little bit nervous of measuring up to Jack Nicholson's performance from, the Tim Burton film. However, he was excited and up for the challenge. And he described his interpretation as psychopathic, mass murdering, schizophrenic clown with zero empathy, and avoided humanizing him. He was also influenced by Alex DeLarge from A Clockwork Orange and British musician Sid Vicious. Now, Ledger spent a month secluding himself in a hotel room while reading relevant comic books such as The Killing Joke, but apparently he said that he didn't really find a lot of use for The Killing Joke, but I really want to kind of say bullshit on that because there's obviously elements from The Killing Joke that he does put into the character. He also made a diary containing images that he would resonate with his character and a whole bunch of other crazy shit to get him into the role. If I remember right, he does get best supporting actor posthumously, right?
I believe so, but I can't remember 100% sure. If not, I mean, it was certainly deserved. There's again, I don't know that I've ever seen a better performance from anyone. Like it's such a fantastic job.
Yeah, it's also the Dark Knight lack of a Best Picture nomination was criticized and described as a snub by some publications. That makes sense. But yeah, Heath Ledger did get Best Supporting Actor. That being said, we also, oddly enough, have actually shit. Forgot. We also have Aaron Eckhart as Harvey Dent, and Two-Face as the vigilante.
Silence is great for podcasts.
Yeah, sorry. Josh Lucas, Ryan Felipe, and Mark Ruffalo were all considered, except including Matt Damon. But Matt Damon could not commit to the role due to scheduling conflicts, and according to Christopher Nolan, Eckhart had the all-American charm and aura of a good man pushed too far, so therefore he decided to cast him as Harvey Dent, and Eckhart said that he found portraying like conflicted characters to be very, very interesting, and loved the role, and also wanted to come back in the next movie with the role.
When it grosses over $1 billion at the box office, I would blame anybody who didn't want to come back. To be completely real with you, that's a crazy.
Now,
number.
as for Maggie Gyllenhaal's replacing Rachel, Katie Holmes as Rachel Dawes. Yeah, Mad Money. Gyllenhaal approached Rachel as a new character and did not reference his Holmes' previous performance, which I think was a little bit for the better. And I don't see why like Gyllenhaal. Oh, yeah, I can't find a reason why they selected Maggie Gyllenhaal over someone else. I assume it's because like I don't know, brunette.
I visually wasn't that far off. I guess like it's noticeably different, but if you're not watching them back to back, like it fit well enough.
But Gyllenhaal did collaborate with Nolan on the character's depiction since she wanted Rachel to be important and meaningful despite her relative minor role.
I mean, it's still minor compared to like it's not Batman or the Joker, so I get it. But like, okay.
But anyway, here's what I said. Strangely enough, there's also a lot of people that are cast in such like weird fucking like small bit parts that are like relatively like famous goddamn actors. Like we have, Cillian Murphy with a small role as, Scarecrow. We also
You're doing real well with the silence thing.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we also have Julia Roberts' brother Eric Roberts as Sal Maroni. We also have Michael J. White, who is, if I remember right, is he Spawn? I'm pretty sure he's freaking Spawn. Yep, he is Spawn. All right, sweet. So, comic book reference there. He is a gangster in this movie. We also have William is it Fichtner or Fichtner?
I'm not sure.
But he's in, Crash, The Perfect Storm, Go, Black Hawk Down. He's also in Heat, Armageddon. He's also in shit, what the fuck? Prison Break. I think he's Mahoney in Prison Break.
I think so.
Yeah, Alexander Mahoney. Okay. I know him as the Mr. Dearly and Drowning Mona. So
yeah, it's continuing the same theme of Batman Begins, and a lot of way bigger actors than the parts prevail. I mean, even Cillian Murphy, who we praised the last time, I think had 2 lines of dialogue, and one of them was buried behind a mask that I'm not even convinced 100% was Murphy speaking his own lines.
Oh, and apparently Matt Skiba's in this, which
that's pretty cool.
That's an automatic dislike for me.
Yeah, we know how you feel. Skiba's a cool dude. Yeah, leave it alone. Different podcast, different time. Move along.
Oh, I can't move on. I will say this. I respect the hell out of Alkaline Trio, even though I don't like them. That being said, that's what I got for cast. That's what I had for like production. Uh, so
I think we can genuinely just move straight beyond the plot as well. If
yeah,
you haven't seen The Dark Knight by now, you're missing out. You ought to. Like, I'm not even gonna describe it to you. Just go fucking watch it. But I think that drags us towards likes and dislikes. I'll let you get started, Stahlman. I'm gonna
all
be
right.
watching it.
Elephant in the fucking room. Heath Ledger's performance is fucking amazing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely incredible. My big thing for this was that like every part of it is believable. Every line of dialogue is important. Everything's delivered flawlessly. Like there's so much purpose, so much intent. Like everything just strikes all the right chords, hits the perfect notes. Flawless performance.
The biggest thing that I love about the performance is the fact that the Joker basically kind of puts on this thing where he's like improvising as he goes, and which he does at some points, but like he has his whole entire plan basically thought out. Like he is 10 steps ahead of everybody and just adjusts his plan accordingly to just cause chaos and havoc.
Well,
Or, fun.
we'll get there. I have more to say, but we'll get there.
Uh I also think that Maggie Gyllenhaal's performance uh is a lot better than Katie Holmes for the sheer fact that Katie Holmes looks like a deer in the headlights when she's like acting as Rachel Dawes, while Maggie Gyllenhaal looked like she actually put some personality into her performance despite having, resting stoner face syndrome.
Fair.
I'm sorry if that sounded too mean, but like we made a comment that she looked like she just got done smoking a goddamn joint between takes. But um I think she knocked it out of the park. I think just the acting straight out across the board, honestly, like uh was great. Uh except for one person in particular a little bit, which kind of kills suspense of disbelief. And it might have to do with like College Humor parodying this shit way too much, but that will go into dislikes. But overall, solid damn acting, solid like script. Like there's nothing I can think of that's like plot wise that has too many holes that's egregious,
Sure.
if that makes sense. Um I think a lot of the camera work is also really, really well done. Especially the scene where the Joker is basically doing like hostage films. And it's really, really reminiscent, and I'm pretty sure it's like reminiscent of like since the Iraq war and the war in Afghanistan were still going on, it was, definitely trying to give off the impression of like, the various terrorism threat videos that you would see on the news constantly during that time. Um I think like how like the cinematography on how those scenes were shot was well done of recreating that. I also think uh the music score of especially like while the Joker does like his speeches is able to add to like the intensity of what's going on.
Honestly, that's one of my favorite parts about Christopher Nolan. We mentioned it a little bit during the Bond podcast, but like my reason that I love it so much with Christopher Nolan is that it's not a memorable soundtrack, right? Like this isn't a movie you go and buy the CD for afterwards because it's got a bunch of songs you liked, right? Like it's all
Right.
orchestral, it's all background, and Like, it's so impactful, and you can tell because you're not typically paying attention to it. Like, it's there, it makes things better, but it's not like so noticeable that you're hyper fixating on the sound. Really well done.
And also to add on like Heath Ledger's performance, the thing that I really like about a couple things I like about him. I like how some of the things that he does come from Jack Nicholson a little bit, like his portrayal of like not just like his portrayal of the Joker, but like I'd say certain parts of like previous performances such as like The Shining.
Yeah.
Like there's a couple of things that seem like very Nicholson mannerisms as kind of like a, you know, a callback to that. But also how the Joker has a different story about how he got his scars. As like in the Killing Joke, the Joker describes that he remembers his origin different ways and he prefers it to be multiple choice. Like one origin that he remembers sounds better than the other. And I love how this movie basically says like we have no idea how the Joker came to be. He's just here causing shit. And the fact that the Joker in this movie adds on to that with, you know, different like 3 different versions of how he got these scars, you know?
Yeah.
Which the second one's my favorite. The first one is Ted's favorite. Ted loves, you know, why so serious? I like now I'm always smiling.
Yeah, like I said, the dialogue
both are very good.
Yeah, dialogue was super solid. I don't know how much gets attributed to who, but regardless, like, yeah, the origin stories, the source material, all fantastic.
Also, chemistry between actors is like super good.
For the most part, yeah. It's weird because like while the characters deal with each other, it's not often they're interacting.
Right.
When they do interact, things are smooth, things are solid. Like the movie still flows, but there isn't a whole lot of like direct back and forth. I don't know. I think it's interesting. So the one place I wanted to jump back to real quick was the cinematography. I think that like first in terms of making the movie, right? The makeup department, the costume department deserves huge kudos here.
Yes.
So first off, like the portrayal of the Joker kind of changes from beginning of the movie to the end. At the very beginning, it's, you know, like washed, neat hair, or relatively neat anyway, with, you know, a fair amount of chaos and a full face of makeup, right? By the end, you've got tattered clothes, you've got less clothes, the makeup is fading from his face in certain spots, covered in sweat, looks like he hasn't taken a shower in 3 fucking weeks, right? And it's all done super intentionally, right? It's supposed to mimic the development of the Joker's ultimate plot line here, but like without jumping too deep into that, I mean, I think that the ability to make him look the same level of disheveled as his deteriorating plan, right? Like I think is really miraculous and shouldn't go without comment. So the other like big part that we kind of touched on this during Batman Begins, that like Nolan had a really good balance of source material versus making a cinematic event, right? And I think that becomes even more difficult with a sequel. I think it's a little bit noticeable in the fact that like the first film created some origins.
Sorry, I just noticed this ladybug on my microphone here.
Jesus fucking Christ. Anyway, I think it becomes more noticeable because in the first film, we watched a whole bunch of like intertwining villains, right? We watched a whole bunch of plot lines come together to create Batman's origin story. And I think that it becomes more challenging because to create the same level, the same effect, the Joker doesn't necessarily have a firm origin story, as you mentioned. And you also don't have to establish Batman or many other villains.
Right, and Two-Face's comic book origin is kind of dumb.
Right, in
like,
this one,
there's literally no motivation. I'm not talking about this movie, but there's literally no motivation for Two-Face becoming Two-Face just because, oh wow, my face got burnt, so now therefore I am now, you know, a bad guy.
Right, I think that despite having a more they've got a more difficult place to start from, but they still do a phenomenal job at incorporating all three of the major players, right? Batman's
Right.
continuance again, plus Two-Face, plus the Joker. Like everything just flows smoothly together. I think it's brilliant. The one thing that I really want to get into is that this movie isn't just superhero movie, right? There's a whole
No,
lot of
it's
like
not.
big underlying themes. Not that I'm sitting here like, it needs to be an episode of South Park where no matter how stupid it is, it gives you a thing to learn at the end of the episode, right? Like, so this whole thing was the difference between, like, from start to finish, every aspect of this film was the difference between chance versus control, right?
Right.
And the way that like the script was written in a way that those things like overlap and one controls the other, like just in a back and forth method, is incredible to me. So take for example, right? The most simple place to look at this is Harvey Dent's coin, right? At the
Yes.
beginning, it looks like he's leaving things to chance, but he remains completely in control because it's a it's a double sided coin. They're both heads, right? He creates
Right.
his own luck, and he mentions it several times. He's not leaving anything to chance. He's in control. But then the chaos takes over, where like even though it was technically within the Joker's control, right? Harvey Dent gets saved. Yes, half of his face burns off, but it wasn't supposed to happen that way. The chaos was that
Right.
there was misinformation. The wrong person got saved, and he got saved by happenstance, right?
Right.
And when that happens, his character switches from, deliberate control to I can leave this up to chance and still be in control, where he doesn't shoot, the gangster in the back of the car. He just flips the coin again, gets a different result, shoots the driver. Same effect, he kills the gangster, right? Like he's in
Right.
control despite it being chance. Phenomenal there. But even that's still even a simple one, right? If you look at all of the times that the Joker has the next thing planned out, like when he gets arrested, right? When he's in the jail cell, he knows that he can have that cop beat the shit out of him, and he knows he can take control. He knows that all he has to do is make a phone call and blow up the guy's stomach, even though it was like kind of referenced like really early, and it looked like he was, down and out. But no, he's always got a plan. He's in control of what appears to be chaos. However, the only moment that it's technically entirely out of the Joker's hands is when he gets caught. He hands two groups of people the ability to cause chaos towards each other, but he's not in control of I can do it anyway. He does in fact leave it to chance, and that's when the plan falls apart. It's brilliant. The balance between chaos, control, all of it, and it's so flawless that they continue to reference it. Everything intermingles the whole damn movie. I love it. I think it's fantastic.
And speaking of things out of control, the hospital was supposed to blow up while the first button press.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite like little bits of trivia tidbits from any film ever. When he goes to blow up the hospital, it doesn't blow up, but he stays in character to press the button several more times, and then it blows up. It's the greatest. I love it.
Yeah, I equate that like actually no, I think that's honestly better than when in Django Unchained when Leonardo DiCaprio like breaks the wine glass and still keeps on acting despite that he has like a huge gash in his
Yeah,
freaking hand.
I like blowing up. They had one shot, right? The budget to blow up the hospital with the like micro explosions before the whole thing blows up. You only get to do that once. The whole thing was
Right.
going to be CGI if it didn't go off, and genuinely brilliant.
Speaking of CGI, the CGI in this is actually held up really well, especially like Two-Face's face, which is all CG.
Yeah, absolutely terrific. And they add just minute little details in there that make it like all that much better. What was it? He was drinking water? You watch some of
Yeah.
it drip out of his face, but it's not like the camera is harped in on it to make sure you know how good the CG is. Like it's just the tiniest,
Eh,
most minor little detail that you can pick up on. It's brilliant.
Yeah, because like there's a lot of like CG, like even like like before or even after this, where it's just like you can tell it's CG and it has not aged well at all. But the CG in this is pretty damn beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the other things that I want to talk about is one of the big contributors to the overarching theme in Batman Begins was Batman's desire to be good, right?
Yes.
And like not to harp back into the chaos versus control thing, right? But like, it's a pretty iconic scene where Batman is on his motorbike, turns around, and the Joker's begging for him to hit him because the Joker just wants to break his rule. Joker's not even looking to not die. He has no
Yeah.
fear. He's willing to die. He's giving into that chaos just because he wants to know that rules are broken. But Batman's like, I don't want to say wholesomeness, but his sticking to his values, right, comes out on top. And like, I think that's cool that it plays back into the first movie with the themes that we've already seen while still flowing into that chaos element.
And even here it actually shows like it honestly, like, Batman sticking to his convictions is being a detriment to everybody in this plot, because to be honest, like, if he would have ran the Joker over, like, a lot of shit that happens afterwards wouldn't have happened, you know?
Yeah. So one of I don't know if are you done with likes? I want to transition a little bit into dislikes.
Uh, I, I think we're good
All right.
for
So
likes.
um there's very few dislikes in this film. I have very few. I
Yeah.
really was afraid that I was going to end up picking this apart to the point where I didn't like it anymore. But no, the only real dislike that I have of note, um, so
Sound balance, but that might be have to
that
do with
that could
what
have been the
the
platform that we
streaming
were watching.
service
Yeah.
watching, yeah.
Um, I don't remember it being that egregiously bad. I own the DVD and I'm tempted to go back and check, but I think it was more the platform we were watching. So I'll give that one the benefit of the doubt. No, the one real thing that I want to harp on is kind of like a, a, plot, a sticking point of the plot. So uh, somewhere in the middle of the movie, the Joker decides that the chaos that he wants, the control he wants, is to unmask Batman. He just wants the world to know
Right.
who Batman is. But I think that, like, with any amount of critical thinking, they could have done that themselves. So in Bruce Wayne's deal with Lau, where he travels to China, all of a sudden Batman's in China, and then they both come back seemingly at the same time, right? Like,
Right.
I feel like the plot kind of ruins itself there. That like, oh man, well, Batman went to China and Bruce Wayne went to China, so maybe it's Bruce Wayne, and like he's got the money to do it. Like, I feel like the smallest bit of critical thinking blows that plot apart.
Right. Um there's that. There's also a part in the plot where I understand, like, I don't think that there's it's the part where Alfred burns like Rachel's letter to Bruce. To me, I don't think it really adds anything to him, like, not seeing it, cuz like uh I kind of get the interpretation that Alfred does it just because, like, it might, he understands that Bruce needs to still be Batman, but like, to me it's like there's nothing like the letter that would make him like not be Batman, you know? If anything, like, uh it's Rachel say like, "Hey, I know that Bruce Wayne needs Batman. So like, I am marrying Dent because like you need Batman, and Batman's more important than our relationship." To me, that you figured that would inspire, Bruce Wayne to continue on as Batman, but
I,
like,
I guess like the worst I'll say about it is that it's kind of a redundancy, right? It's
right,
something that
yeah,
happens in the movie because like it seems like it could become important, but at the end, like if you boil it down, like nothing would have
it's
been lost
not
if they cut that. However, I think that like the value that it does provide in the movie, even while it is sort of redundant, is it helps you build like an emotional connection to the characters, or you feel like, Alfred's playing a significant part in Batman's existence, or Bruce is further motivated that isn't just make crime go away or avenge my
right.
parents, right? It gives Rachel some depth in the idea that like, yeah, she still loves him, but she knows he's on to bigger, better thing, right? Like it adds some attachment to
Yeah,
a
well,
few
I mean, I
characters.
think the letter does sense some attachment, but I just think burning it just makes the letter redundant.
Yeah, like I said, you could boil it down that way. I get it. I don't mind it, but it wouldn't have changed a whole lot without
Right, and it's nothing that oh, the letter's redundant ruins the film. No.
it.
However, what does kind of ruin the film for me a little bit. Now, I'm not saying like it makes the movie unwatchable. It doesn't. It just makes it just kind of makes the movie like not serious, and I blame College Humor for this, but like Christian Bale's voice as Batman is pretty goddamn hammy.
It's kind of bad. They
I
were
kill
less
these people.
they were less lazy with it this time. Like there were some points where it kind of slipped in Batman Begins. This one they were much more strict about this is when it happens, this is when it doesn't. But it was just kind of, I don't know. It felt half laid on. I know that there were issues with when this was filming that like they needed to take breaks to rest his voice. Like the Batman scenes needed to be filmed numerous times over because the voice would crack. But like I don't know, I feel like you could dub it over pretty seamlessly with the way like with the level that their CG was. I feel like you could have gone back and done that later and it wouldn't have sounded as corny as it did.
It's still better than George Clooney, who never fucking changed his goddamn voice. So, you
Fair.
know. So, I mean, I can't really, blame it, you know, fault it way too much, but it is very distracting, and it's like, especially during the scenes, like, where are they? It's just like, I got drunk at a kid's wedding. I'm sorry. Like, it's like it's pretty bad when College Humor has it like so dead on with that voice that it just seems very comical and hammy for that,
I
gruffy voice.
I also think that like they don't help themselves at the very beginning of the movie. Like the Batman like apprehends several people impersonating Batman. What's the difference between you and me? You're just a guy. I'm not wearing hockey pants. Like it just sounds like something that would come out of one of those like bad Batman videos anyway.
Right.
I don't think they help themselves. That's all I'm saying.
That being said, you done with dislikes?
Yeah, I'm wrapped.
Alright, alright, so it comes down to good old ranking.
Oh boy. Oh boy. This
Third
one
place, right?
No, actually, genuinely, this one was pretty easy for me. I'm making it first. There's really no like major detractions from this film. The minor plot point, like obviously, is minute compared to the way that the story was told. Acting's phenomenal. Movie direction was terrific. The script, the way that everything meshed together, like this is a masterpiece. It may not necessarily feel like most Christopher Nolan movies, but there's still elements to it, and it's just so beautifully written with really recognizable source material that just makes this movie feel super, super comfortable. As much as I love Following and Memento, Dark Knight's it.
Okay. So, this was a little bit tough because, like, I really liked Following and I really liked Memento. And I also really like this movie as well. Now, I am putting this at number one, and the reason why I'm putting this at number one is because, for obvious reasons, acting's good, story is superb, but this is a Christopher Nolan movie that has Christopher Nolan-esque things, but done in a linear fashion.
Yeah.
Which is, very refreshing to see.
Feeds the appetite a little better, yeah.
And the fact it shows that okay, when you're someone like Christopher Nolan and you're known for doing non-linear storytelling, you kind of makes you think like, can the actor actually make a linear story? And after watching Insomnia, it's like, yes, but like it's almost completely devoid of, Christopher Nolan's like, directing style. It seems more like he had really nothing to do with it and was like a little bit out of his element. And then you had not so much like a lackluster ending, you know, I guess ending product,
Right.
but it was something that's like, yeah, it's okay, but like, you know, it seems something that if you would have just saw like, Christ, I had this all thought out, and now it's got. Oh yeah, if you would have just saw like Insomnia, and then just saw like Following, Memento, Batman Begins, The Prestige, and then Tenet, you would think like Christopher Nolan was like bad at like linear storytelling, like that wasn't a strong point. This movie really proves that he can do it and can do it effectively while still retaining the mystery and bits and pieces of like of what you know of like unraveling truths and what's actually going on from what you think is going on.
Right, and the plot still being tangled, right? Like, yes, it unravels itself in a linear format, but like it still keeps all of those same elements of like they know more than you do, or there's something that you're missing that's ahead of you. Like the way that the Joker, again, when he gets captured and then blows up the police station, right? Like the plot is ahead of you, even if you're still watching it in a reasonable, straightforward fashion.
And again, this is also another one of those movies where you actually like, we said this with The Prestige, like the second viewing, you start paying attention to more things each time
Right.
while watching it. So it's definitely something that can be like rewatched. It's also very easy for someone to follow and get into. Like this is definitely like the first. I mean,
I would say Batman Begins is probably a better.
because yeah. Although this is kind of like a standalone movie for the most part. Like Batman Begins, this is definitely a good starter as well.
You can jump into this movie and get the whole picture. Like absolutely.
And another thing that I like about this. Now, I'll say this: The Empire Strikes Back is an exception to this thing. So is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. But like when it comes to like a trilogy of films, now understanding that Christopher Nolan wasn't sure if like there was going to be a sequel or not. Anyway, I like how this movie, regardless within like the trilogy, isn't like half a fucking story.
Mm-hmm.
It's its entire story. It annoys me to no frickin' end when the sequel is half a story and they basically sequel bait a third movie that's usually goddamn lackluster. I was annoyed with it with Back to the Future. I was extremely annoyed with it with Pirates of the Caribbean.
I'd even give you that argument for the Lord of the Rings because I mean, but to be fair, most of that was on Tolkien because Two Towers
Right.
was
Yeah, with Lord of the
way
Rings,
the
like
weakest.
yeah, I mean, with Lord of the Rings, it's one book that's separated to three, separate parts that was published in three separate parts. So therefore, unless you're a madman like Ralph Bakshi and try to combine like two films together and then totally abandoning, Return of the King. um which that would be an interesting person to actually cover, would be Ralph Bakshi, just because of the cartoon Lord of the Rings, but like I'm not that annoyed by it because to me I understand. And with Empire Strikes Back, that's just such a good movie that I don't get pissed off about. But the thing that really pissed me off a much is when they do it in fucking video games. Like Halo 2 is why I never played Halo 3 or any Halo game since, unless I played multiplayer with you and Donovan and all of them.
Fair.
Because I'm playing like the last level and I'm like, all right, I want to see how this ends, and then it's a cliffhanger and it's like, yeah, gotta buy Xbox 360. And it's like, why would I buy an Xbox 360 when my original Xbox had the Thompson drive, which went out, and the Xbox 360s get red ringed all the freaking time? It's like, why do I want to buy another Microsoft console so it can break on me?
Well,
So
we've derailed really hard. Anyway,
yeah.
So,
But anyway, so that being said, with that refreshing take with this, being its own story, probably at least top 2 for best movie sequels.
it's up there. Yeah, this is up there.
Number
top
1
5.
for me.
This is up there. A top 5 movie for me
yeah.
all time. Like
Yeah.
With or within this franchise. Absolutely phenomenal film.
Anyway, number 1 in this entire Batman franchise for movies, and number 1 so far with the Christopher Nolan movies that we watched.
Absolutely. I think that wraps us up for this one. As always, thank you for watching. Next week, what do we come back with next week? Are we already in Inception?
Ooh, I think we might be, which...
Let me look. I'm scrolling here. Yeah, we're at Inception next week. Goddamn. All right, we're going to hit the confusing part of...
Another freaking good one.
Yeah, fantastic film, but we're going to get into some confusing shit here. Anyway, so we'll be back with Inception next week. I know that the podcast is a few weeks ahead of where we're watching them at, but you can still join the Discord on Tuesdays and watch movies with us. We'll be a little bit ahead of Inception, but you still get to watch some Christopher Nolan movies, so enjoy it. As always, you can follow us on Twitch, Stahlman at Traductus, myself at Ted Green Eagles. If you're already in the Discord to watch the movies, you can also see updates as far as, what we're going to do with future iterations of this podcast, because I think we're going to keep it going a lot longer than just the filmography of Christopher Nolan.
Yes, especially since Oppenheimer comes out.
Yeah.
Way after we finish these things, so be on the lookout for what we plan on doing to kill time between then and some stuff afterwards that we think might be a little bit fun.
I think we announced it in the last week's podcast. We're also doing a Halloween event, so if you're into horror movies, you can check that out for most of October. We're going to have a fuckload of them. Anyway, I think that wraps us up, brings us to the end of this one, so we'll see you next week.
Later.